Stoicism is hard, but why? Fortunately for us, the answer to that isn't hard, but that depends on who's asking, if someone's asking. For someone content with the self-discipline they've been able to bring into their lives and are fine that way, the question might not even pop up in their minds. Chances are, Stoic practices that seem self-help on the surface proved enough to rid them of their problems. However, for someone who's taken a major hit to their peace of mind, one who desperately seeks the experience of long years, of lifetimes, to be condensed into mindfulness and practices that make use of it, if they've started on the Stoic path, the difficulty is prominent and questions never-ending. That someone knows Stoicism is hard, that someone knows cultivating a Stoic mindset is a profound shift that takes time and patience. He knows Stoicism isn't a set of beliefs to be followed occasionally. It's a daily practice and a way of life. Developing habits of rational thinking, self-reflection, emotional regulation, and living virtuously can be difficult to integrate into everyday routines, especially when life gets busy or stressful. Let's get a taste of that difficulty, shall we? This is real talk for tough people, the Stoic way. Don't skip it, don't rush it. Hook those earphones up and let things go. A rational mind is hard to find. Stoicism challenges us to break free from some of the most fundamental instincts ingrained in our nature. As humans, we're wired to experience intense emotions: anger, fear, anxiety, desire, and attachment. These emotions, which evolved to help us survive, are powerful forces that can sweep us up like a current and take us far from the shores of peace of mind. Stoicism seeks to regulate these emotions, these passions, as the Stoics used to call them. It asks us to practice letting go of what we cannot control and to focus on what is within our control. But let's face it, doing so is no easy task. We wince when insulted, grieve inconsolably over our losses, often on the inside, and deeply attach ourselves to our desires. We're naturally reactive beings. When things don't go our way, the instinct is to try and change our external environment, to force circumstances to bend to our will. The Stoics teach a different path, a path that requires an immense shift in perspective. It's about recognizing that no matter how much we struggle against the waves, there are some things we can never control: the opinions of others, the nature of the world around us, and most importantly, how life unfolds. Our struggle is not with the world, but with our minds. The first difficulty that a Stoic way of life poses, then, is perceiving things rationally. At the center of this struggle is the tendency to attach value judgments to everything we perceive. We're constantly labeling events, objects, and people as good or bad, desirable or unworthy, and so on. Imagine this scenario. You receive a criticism at work, and immediately your mind races. Am I not good enough? Did I make a huge mistake? What do they think of me? These value judgments come rushing in like an unstoppable flood, and they feel so natural that we don't even question them. But Stoicism asks us to do something radically different. It asks us to pause, reflect, and remove the lens of judgment. Instead of immediately classifying the situation as bad, what if we see it just as it is? Feedback, nothing more, nothing less. This mental clarity, seeing an apple as only an apple, not a good or a bad apple, and hence an insult as simply an opinion, demands a degree of self-mastery that doesn't come easily. It's a skill that must be honed over time through conscious effort and consistent practice. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, spoke about the importance of using reason accurately. When our passions come into play, they can distort our perception of reality, like looking through a foggy window. Yet, when we assent to things we perceive with the passions still at play, we not only fail our reason, but also set ourselves up for trouble. Stoicism encourages us to clear the fog of passion, to see reality as it is, without the added baggage of our judgments and assumptions. It asks us to brush off insults with the same detachment we'd feel if someone spoke nonsense in a language we don't understand. It asks us to imagine the freedom of letting go of praise and criticism alike, of simply taking things as they come without the roller coaster of emotions attached. Yet here's the challenge. Value judgments are part of our survival. When we look at food, it's natural to think, is this safe to eat? Is this healthy? When we choose a partner, we assess whether they are a good fit for us. These judgments are necessary and often helpful, and if we stopped making them, we might as well just wouldn't be. It's quite difficult to recognize the distinction between practical judgments that promote our well-being and those irrational judgments driven by passion, pride, or fear. This is especially so when we're coming from a place of deeply ingrained habits and instincts. And so, even though it's not about abandoning discernment and only about seeing things differently, about understanding when to judge and when to let go, and even when we recognize the distinction, realizing such a perception remains difficult because of the ingrained algorithm that runs on passions. Think about the moments when you're faced with a high-stakes situation, perhaps a difficult conversation, a job interview, or an unforeseen challenge that shakes you to your core. These moments often come with the kind of intensity that can feel like they might make or break you. It's in these moments that Stoic practice becomes essential, where the calm, rational approach to value judgments can make all the difference between panic and equanimity, between despair and resilience. Yet, when compared to the benefits of the Stoic mindset in such moments, doesn't it feel proportionally difficult to hold on to it? Indeed, for someone accustomed to reactive thinking, letting go of the deep-seated habits of perceiving and responding rationally is extremely difficult. This transformation requires a shift in perspective. To walk the Stoic path of assenting indifferently is to acknowledge the rationality needed to navigate the world safely. It's also to recognize the need, as well as the difficulty, in breaking free from old habits. Seeing reality for what it truly is very difficult. Let no one tell you otherwise. Acceptance isn't accepted. Most people are conditioned to seek comfort, avoid pain, and find ways to make life easier. This is human nature. We're hardwired to steer toward pleasure and away from discomfort. When life throws curveballs like hardship, failure, or injustice, the natural instinct is to fight back, to change those circumstances, or, at the very least, to resist them. But Stoicism offers a counterintuitive approach to these challenges. Rather than wishing things were different, it calls for embracing amor fati, a love for one's fate. This means accepting and even loving every experience that life presents, whether pleasant or painful. To most, this idea feels like a tall order. How can one love something as distressing as loss, failure, or suffering? Yet this is where Stoic wisdom diverges sharply from the everyday mindset. While our instinct is to seek comfort, Stoicism asks us to find peace in acceptance, to align ourselves so deeply with life that no twist or turn can disturb our inner balance. To love one's fate is not just about begrudgingly accepting what happens. It's about embracing every moment as necessary, meaningful, and an opportunity for growth. It's the practice of looking at whatever life throws your way, and instead of saying, "Why me?" you say, "Bring it on, big brother. I've got all the strength I need right here." But how difficult is it in practice? How difficult is it indeed to be resilient in adversity? Turns out quite difficult, in fact, doubly difficult. But where does the added difficulty come from? Just why can't this acceptance of everything life throws at us, the acceptance of destiny, so to speak, be sealed with the love for one's fate? To answer that, we first need to understand the potency of total acceptance. When we combine the love for, and so the acceptance of, our fate with accepting the world as it truly is and not as we wish it to be, we become invulnerable to reality itself. However, consider also the difficulty in doing so, for how often we find ourselves wishing reality was different, wishing for a different outcome, a different person, a different life. To wish for what is not is to set ourselves up for endless frustration, and there lies the extra difficulty. The Stoics offer a perspective that asks us to view the world as it unfolds naturally, to see events for what they are without adding layers of desire, anger, or fear. When we can face life without demanding that it conform to our will, we're better able to focus on what truly matters, our response, our growth, and our inner resilience. But can we claim we accept reality as it is? Can we claim we accept our destiny? Can we claim we accept the initial impulse that must have set the very reality we experience in motion? Life's trials, whether they come as heartbreak, loss, or suffering, are painful, and they are hard to face without resistance. To accept life's difficulties without complaint and to find love for one's fate in those moments is incredibly challenging. We're often inclined to label these experiences as unfair or unnecessary, to resist them, or to look for an escape. But the power of acceptance lies in this. When you accept what you cannot change, you allow yourself to let go of the emotional weight that comes with resistance. You find yourself more at peace, more aligned with what is, rather than being burdened by what you think should be. Importantly, this Stoic practice is not about being passive or religious. It's not about surrendering to a higher power, nor is it about blindly following a doctrine. It's about seeing reality clearly, using the faculty of reasoning to discern what is within your control and what is not. The ancient Stoics believed that rational thinking is the compass that helps you navigate life with wisdom, no matter how rough the waters become. When we see things as they are, without the distortions of our desires, fears, and judgments, we are better able to meet life's challenges with a steady mind. Yet reason alone can be elusive. In a world where emotions are strong and instincts to seek comfort run deep, consistently applying reason takes immense practice. For those uninitiated in the Stoic path of rational thinking, life's difficulties can weigh heavy, and the call to amor fati can seem impossible. We are surrounded by messages that tell us to fight against our circumstances, to blame others for our misfortunes, to cling to what feels good, and to avoid what feels bad. But Stoicism teaches that true freedom comes not from changing the world to fit our desires, but from changing our perspective to fit the world as it is. Stoicism is about understanding that every setback, every failure, and every moment of suffering is part of a greater whole, and that you must accept this fact for your growth, your resilience, and your inner peace. And while accepting life without resistance may be difficult, it is the key to equanimity, a balanced state of mind that allows you to stay calm, centered, and strong, no matter what fate may bring. So yes, it is hard, and yes, it requires a shift in mindset. But this is the beauty of Stoic philosophy. It does not promise an easy life. It promises a life lived with purpose, acceptance, and unshakable peace. Enact Stoic virtues. What for? Stoicism challenges us to embrace a mindset that runs counter to our natural instincts. It teaches us that while we should strive to act with our best effort, we must let go of our attachment to outcomes, be they success, approval, or comfort. But why is this so important? Because the world, in its vastness and unpredictability, can never be fully controlled or predicted. Even the most carefully laid plans can crumble, and sometimes, despite pouring our heart and soul into something, the results simply don't align with our expectations. In the face of this uncertainty, Stoic philosophy encourages us to focus on what we can control, our actions, thoughts, and values, and release our grip on what we cannot, the outcomes of our actions. But here's the problem: detaching from outcomes flies in the face of our very nature. More importantly, because we fixate on outcomes, we ignore everything beyond our own interests. There must be an outcome if we've put in the effort, and it must be in our favor. How is that a problem? The answer will soon follow, but it'll only be as convincing as Stoicism is easy to practice. Stoic philosophy suggests we become indifferent to external approval and validation. We are social beings, and one of the deepest, most ingrained human desires is the need for social acceptance and validation. The idea of practicing indifference to social approval while adhering to our own principles is much easier said than done. Why? Because living according to Stoic principles often means swimming upstream, going against the grain of societal norms and expectations. When you choose to live as a Stoic, others may criticize you, misunderstand your intentions, or dismiss your way of life as impractical, and the Stoic response is to remain unmoved, indifferent to both praise and criticism, and firmly rooted in virtue. This is no small feat when surrounded by societal pressures to conform and meet specific benchmarks of success. It takes immense strength to keep calm and adhere to your values without succumbing to the need for external validation. But why is this so hard for us to do? To answer this question, we must look closely at our faculty of reasoning, particularly our habit of comparing. As rational creatures, we use reason to navigate the world, and part of that process involves comparison. Consider the basic comparisons necessary for survival. Eating an apple is good for us, eating a stone is not. In this context, comparison is not just useful, it's essential for our survival. However, this ability to compare often goes beyond its practical use. It takes a turn for the worse when we start judging ourselves and our lives based on external measures, achievements, status, recognition, and approval. Society initiates this comparison by constantly setting benchmarks of what it means to be successful or worthy. And our own reasoning, conditioned by the need to compare, reinforces these expectations. This is where our suffering begins. We start to see life as a race, constantly measuring our worth against what others have and what we lack. We see success not as the fulfillment of virtue or living in alignment with our values, but only as the successful achievement of our goals. The result? A deep-seated yearning for what we don't have, a desire for more, for better, for greater, without ever truly appreciating what is present. The Stoics remind us that this kind of endless comparison, driven by superfluous wants, pulls us away from living virtuously and keeps us in a perpetual state of dissatisfaction. But let's not deny that success is an important aspect of human progress. Striving for achievement is part of what drives innovation, creativity, and growth. Yet the version of success we often chase today has been warped by societal conditioning into a fierce grind, an insatiable race for more money, more status, more possessions. And that's only one side of the equation. There are deeper, more personal desires at play: the hunger for power, the yearning for validation, and at times, the willingness to harm others to get what we want. These desires can cloud our reasoning and lead us away from virtuous living. In light of these challenges, practicing amor fati, the love and acceptance of one's fate, and upholding the Stoic virtues of courage, justice, wisdom, and temperance can be incredibly demanding. It requires us to consistently act with virtue, seeing beyond personal gain and understanding our interconnectedness with all of humanity. Stoicism places the highest value on living according to virtue above all else, above pleasure, comfort, or even what we think of as success. And this means making the ethical choice even when it comes with personal loss or sacrifice. It's a standard of living that is far more than just adhering to rules. It requires a deep sense of integrity, honesty, and most of all, courage. Imagine a situation where you know the right thing to do goes against popular opinion. Standing up for what's right in a crowd that disagrees with you is one of the truest tests of living by Stoic principles. It's uncomfortable, it's lonely, and it may invite judgment or criticism. But it's also what builds the inner strength that Stoicism champions, a strength that remains unwavering regardless of external approval or disapproval. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself in his meditations to see others as part of the human community, to treat them with kindness, and to act for the greater good even when it was inconvenient. Living as a Stoic requires relentless self-examination, a willingness to question one's own beliefs, and the fortitude to go against the tide of societal norms, personal desires, or fears. And while this way of life may seem demanding, it also paves the way for you to be unshakable, to become undefeatable. But that shit is hard, isn't it? Stoicism is hard because it asks for a radical level of self-mastery, emotional regulation, virtue-centered living, and detachment from things beyond your control. It requires thinking and acting against many natural human instincts, such as being driven by emotion, seeking comfort and security, and desiring external approval. It's a philosophy that demands rigorous practice, self-awareness, and a commitment to personal growth, which makes it challenging, but also deeply transformative for those who practice it. In the end, it's safe to say that Stoicism is hard because life is hard. If you like what we do, feel free to do more by liking and sharing the video, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, to the community. How, you ask? By hitting that like button as a symbol of your commitment to change, by subscribing to join a community where wisdom isn't just shared but lived to help us create powerful stuff. And don't forget to hit the notification bell, the gentle chime of a Stoic philosopher, reminding you to return to this space of learning and growth. Each like, each subscription, each notification is a step towards a collective awakening. And if you feel that stirring in your heart, a resonance with the words of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, or Epictetus, share this video. That will help us immensely in continuing to create unique and powerful stuff for the community. Everything changes when you truly hear what Stoicism has been telling us all along. Everything gets better. Your self-discipline, your self-control, your temperance, your cultivation of inner peace and resilience, your self-awareness, your equanimity. You practice forgiveness more often. You stop caring what others think. You start to live with a sense of calm, clarity, and purpose. Even the practice of Stoic principles of the dichotomy of control, negative visualization, memento mori, amor fati, and the view from above gets easier and, more importantly, effective.